Alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in. Good afternoon, everybody. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to broadcast live from the block today. It's a beautiful day. And, I figured, I did so much bad on the block and in the neighborhood and in the community. So, we're just going to reverse that a little bit. And I'm going to do a lot of good on the block, in the neighborhood, and in the community. We broadcasting live from the streets. I'm going to show y'all where we used to be at, where we used to run drugs, bang gangs and so forth. But today we're going to have Talim on the block and do some street teaching. Inshallah, some people will pull up and, then they'll come and listen and, get the good message. But right here, this one of the buildings where we used to do the dirt at, where we used to what they say trap at. When I was a young boy, I was a teenager. When we did that, so 18, 19 years old. As y'all can see, we in Westwood, Cincinnati, the west side. That building right there, we used to hustle real hard out that building right there too. Y'all can see where we at. Well, Harrison and Hansford. One really got rolling for us right there. All right, we're on the block. This is exactly where we used to. Habibi, come this way, so I don't have to turn my head. Okay. We're on the block live. This is where me and my guys used to be at. My whole blood and Paru set. This is exactly where we used to be all the time. We used to be over here. I guess you can call this a stoop, but we used to be right here, with a bunch of guns and a bunch of dope lined up on the wall. As y'all can see, I guess it's dead now. When the feds hit us and took that whole operation down, I guess it just kind of flipped over and guys, did stuff on other parts of the avenue. So, but today we're gonna do the Talim here today, inshallah. So we can, hopefully bring some light to the communities. So, picking up from where we were last week, we briefly covered. I just went over. We broad-based, and we went over what the Quran is, the differences between the Quran and the Bible. And the major difference that I just want to reiterate and go back over is the difference between the Quran and the Bible was that it was given from Allah, God, directly to Angel Gabriel, who was the messenger angel, and Angel Gabriel, the ark messenger angel, gave it to the Prophet Muhammad, sallallahu, and he gave it to his companions, and their companions gave it to their companions. So today I want to just expound on that just a little bit, just for the simple fact, this is what gives the Holy Quran its unique authenticity. It's unlike any other book that exists on the entire planet. Nowadays we have printing presses and you can make an original copy of one book or another, and you can mass produce this book. We have computers that can handle that. But now, if we go back to 1,500 years ago, when the Prophet Muhammad himself, who couldn't read and who couldn't write, and that was not a disadvantage to the Prophet, that was an advantage to the Prophet, because that's just more proof in the Quran not being touched by the Prophet Muhammad nor any of his companions. If he couldn't read and he couldn't write, and then he received a book that had no grammatical errors in it, it had future scientific technologies in it that didn't exist at that time, and nobody could really see until later on, later generations. How could he possibly predict these things if he was illiterate and he couldn't read and he couldn't write? So I said that to say that the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ gave it to his companions, and he didn't touch it at all. He didn't have nothing to do with the authorship of the Holy Quran. He never went and got a pen sat inside of a cave or sat inside of a college classroom, learned some concepts, and from those concepts that he learned, he made a book from his expertise. That's not the way that the Quran worked. That's the way that the Bible came, and there were 60 plus authors in the Quran, in the Bible, and they learned from wherever they learned from. A lot of people really don't know exactly where they learned from, but that's a different live stream from a different day. And those guys kind of wrote according to their expertise at that particular time period. And then many different scholars, biblical scholars, did this, and later on, when they wanted to make a compilation and establish an actual book for the belief of Judaism and Christianity, they kind of gathered together all of these different books that have been written throughout different ages and time periods, and then that's what we have today as the Bible, and that's a Latin word for Biblia. That means that is the actual word is Biblia, and it just means word. So we're going to continue on, and we're going to go on with the authenticity of the Holy Quran. Now, this is the uniqueness of the Holy Quran. The uniqueness of the Holy Quran is this way. When Muhammad received it in the manner that he received, that I just explained, and then he went and gave it to his companions gave it to their companions. Now the miracle and the nature of this is the simple fact that Muhammad ﷺ didn't write it down, nor did he dictate that it be written down, except for certain areas and parts. And his companions, the ones that were literate, that could read and could write, they wrote it down. And when they wrote it down, they passed it down orally. They would recite certain verses from the Holy Quran, and the Prophet ﷺ would recite different verses from the Holy Quran, and he would recite them to his companions, and they would learn it as best they could. Maybe they would learn a small portion of it, a larger portion than that. Some of them learned half, and a lot of them learned the entire Quran by memory. So the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, he memorized the Holy Quran, and he passed on what he memorized. When Angel Gabriel sat him down and taught him what he memorized, he passed it on to his companions and taught it to them the exact way that it was taught to him by Angel Gabriel. And once they memorized it, they taught it to their companions. Now, the Prophet Muhammad said that after him there would be 3 best generations, the Khairul Qurun. These are the best generations. A lot of the Muslims, when we refer to the foundation of Islam, we go back to this, the Khairul Qurun. What did those 3 best generations do? And in that respect, we're going to expound how the greatest thing that 3 best generations did was maintain the preservation as the divine dictate of the Holy Quran. So, excuse me 1 second, allow me to grab my equipment from my official equipment manager, my other stepson. Look, Bobby. It's the equipment manager. Okay, you can get out my film now. All right. So I got a dry eraser board, and you can get it. It's a good shot, can it?
Yeah.
You see? Okay. So on the board, well, let's turn this way because I'm not left-handed or right-handed. So let's go this way. All right. So I'm not going to draw a figurine or any type of drawing of Allah or God, because you can't put a shape or a form to Allah or God, because he cannot be contained by anything in the human mind. He can't be contained by anything, any thought that you could possibly have of Allah or God. It is the incorrect thought, and your conception of God or Allah is the misconception. Whatever you try to come up with, and you see that you fail to come up with it, then this is the actual proper conceptualization of Allah or God. So I'm not going to draw a figurine or any type of drawing here on the board of Allah. I'm just going to say it. So we had Allah, most high, most gracious, and most glorious. He gave the Holy Quran to Angel Gabriel. This is Angel Gabriel. We'll put a G for it. So Angel Gabriel sat directly with Muhammad. the Prophet Muhammad. And this is actually what made Muhammad a prophet. This is what makes a person a prophet, when they receive revelation from God. The word revelation, a lot of people throw it around in today's culture. The word revelation actually means something that was hidden or not common, and it was revealed. And that particular thing is a revelation. So, Angel Gabriel gave it to Muhammad, the Prophet Muhammad. The Prophet Muhammad, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he gave it to his companions. His companions spread it throughout the entire world, and we're going to get that as an example, inshallah. So I just made 3 prongs. There were more companions that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam had given to. The exact number I don't know, and inshallah, that'll be a venture inside of my studies, and I'll learn that and I'll share it with the people, inshallah. So let's just say this is all hypothetical, but this is the paradigm that was used in the preservation of the Holy Quran. Okay, let's just say that Prophet Muhammad gave it to 10 companions here, 10 companions here, 10 companions. I think I'm going to use the word disciples, because that's a very common word inside of the U.S. culture. So let's say he had Muhammad, he received it via orally from Angel Gabriel. So I'm going to give a verse of the Holy Quran, and a chapter of the Holy Quran, and I'm going to relate to you all how it was passed on. So Angel Gabriel, there's a verse, Surah Ikhlas, chapter 114 in the Holy Quran. It says, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, Kul huwa Allahu ahad, Allahu samad, lam yalid, wa lam yulad, wa lam yakul lahu kufuwan ahad. Those were the exact words that Angel Gabriel had, that he got from Allah. When Angel Gabriel got those words, he gave those words to Muhammad. Exactly like that. No alteration, none whatsoever. And we're going to prove that. So once he gave it to the Angel Gabriel, when Angel Gabriel got it from Allah, he came and brought it to Muhammad, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Muhammad came and said, hey y'all, this is just paraphrasing. He came and said, hey y'all, I just got a revelation from Allah, God. And they said, okay, well what did he say? He sat right here, and maybe, there were 10 here, 10 here, 10 here, disciples. Maybe I'll write this on the word, on the board. Hope I spelled this right. But, okay, so these are the disciples. He sat down, he said, Kul huwa Allahu ahad, Allahu samad, lam yalid, wa lam yulad, wa lam yakul lahu kufuwan ahad. Once he came and did that, these 10 companions got it, and they memorized it. Now, that's just one chapter, one of the shortest chapters of the Holy Quran. It's only 3 verses. Now, they memorized it, and they went maybe this way. Now, this is during the generation of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Maybe this guy went over here on the east side of Medina. Just the east, yeah. He went to the east side of Medina, and he's connected with all the tribes and the people that he's connected with. This brother went to the southern part of Medina. Medina is the city where the Prophet Muhammad received about half of his revelation. It was the same instance from Mecca, which where the revelation began. It was for about 10 years, and then he left there. 13 years, and he left there and went to Medina because of religious persecution, kind of like what you see today. So this companion took that verse, that chapter, or the entire Quran, to the south of Medina or Mecca, wherever they was, and maybe this companion, he had his folks that he dealt with. Here go the folks. And this companion here, he went and took it to the west side of Medina. Now, mind you, let me remind you, this is hypothetical. This is a paradigm of how this actually happened. There is an actual structure that the scholars can explain to you, but I'm not a scholar. I'm just a person calling the people towards the truth and trying to provide some guidance for the misguided. Okay, so this brother came and brought it to the people on the west side of Medina, and he had his folks. Now let's say, now mind you, this is all Medina and Mecca. Medina and Mecca, these are the holiest places on the planet. Mecca first, then Medina. Mecca, this is the hometown of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam in Arabia, modern day Saudi Arabia. And Medina is the place where he migrated to. It's about the distance to Columbus or Cleveland. I'm still not sure about that, but it's about that much difference. They migrated to Medina once they escaped persecution in Mecca. So, okay, this is what's going on inside of these two cities. Now, let's say these 10 companions were connected. You know, they went to their family members, their friends, and to the broad of their society, and it spread like wildfire. Now, these companions told these companions, let's say these companions were 20, these each. Same difference here. Same difference here.
It does.
Is it the connection good?
Yeah.
Okay. Just relax. Is there a question posed on there or something?
No, it's like this side shadow and this side.
I'm not important, as long as you can see the board. Alright. So let's see. 40, 60, 80, 1, 20, 40, 60, 80. So this possible 180 plus this, imagine, it's spreading.
Keep going out.
Can you move a little bit? Okay. I'll move around and try to get this connection.
Nah, it keep doing it.
Huh?
It keep doing it for some reason.
Get a good one.
Trying to.
Huh?
Look.
Is it good?
Yeah, it's good.
We're trying to make sure that we,
Alright. Man, we gotta move somewhere. It just keeps saying trying to reconnect.
Let me know when it's good.
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah.
Can you see? Okay. Alright. So imagine the revelation, what was revealed to Muhammad, is spreading like wildfire. Now, this is all over just the city of Mecca and Medina, both each. Now, all of these different people have their hands on the Holy Quran. Now imagine, this is what happened with each verse and each chapter and each and the Holy Quran in its entirety. Now, this is how it started. This is how the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu companions got it. Now, we're gonna go down here. All of these companions, they number at the end of Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu life, a 23-year period of revelation. Muhammad Sallallahu had about 100,000 different disciples and companions, people who have memorized the entire Quran and memorized bits and pieces of the Quran and memorized large portions of the Holy Quran. Now, this next generation, after the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu died, these people passed it on to this generation. Now, this generation did the same thing. You know, maybe it was 100,000 of them, and they passed it on to whoever they were connected with. And we can probably say it went up to 200,000. Maybe it went up to that much because they had family, they had friends, they had communities. Then it was the next generation. I need to clear the dry eraser board. Okay. Muhammad's companions, they had their generation, they were about 100,000. All right. Then they passed it to the next generation, their family, their friends, and their community. First generation. Then, let's say they were in, say it multiplied and they became 200,000. Second generation. Then after that, maybe they became 400,000 as they pass it on to their family, their friends, and their community. Third generation. Now, we went from here, boom, boom. Now, maybe, let's say, at least there were about 500,000 people who either memorized the entire Quran, have the Quran, or great portions of the Quran, or just, bits and pieces here and there. Now, we have, let's say, in totality, we have about 500,000 people who had memorized the Holy Quran. Maybe it was about that much. Now, what's miraculous about this is in the first generation of those companions, let me sit this down for a second. In the first generation of the Prophet Muhammad's companions, there was a war called the War of Yamama. And I think they said about 70 of his disciples who had memorized the entire Quran had died in this battle. Now, when they died in that battle, the eminent companions, the ones who were most close with the Prophet Muhammad himself, they were frightened that they might lose the Holy Quran because the people who memorized it the best and taught it to people, a lot of them had died off in that war. And they said that if we have another war, we couldn't sustain such a loss. So they said we should come up with one standardized copy. And of this, let me stand up for a second. Of this one standardized copy, we'll be able to have that just as a reference. Now, allow me to sidebar this conversation. The miraculousness of the Holy Quran is such that we didn't even, our ancestors, the people where we draw our spiritual lineage from, they did not even have the book, and then they printed another book and printed another book, and then they had them in every single church or mosque or every place of worship or every community. They didn't have them. They didn't have this to rely on. They never stood at the pulpit and opened up the book and said, okay, in chapter such and such and verse such and such, this is going to be the topic for the day. This is not the case inside of the history of the Quran. In the history of the Holy Quran, they memorized it. And the leaders were obviously those who memorized the Holy Quran. The entire Holy Quran, obviously they would be the leaders. They would precede the people who memorize half, large portions, and small chapters of verses from here and there. So those people would sit in circles and they would teach it because Muhammad gave it to them, and the people would flock to those individuals who knew Muhammad and who got the Holy Quran from Muhammad. And they would sit in circles. It was nothing formal like today. You see these big mosques. You see these big churches, and they go up all the way to the sky, and they have gold over here, and the biggest, the parking passes with large parking lots. And they didn't have any of that. These people were on foot, dressed in rags, with sandals on. Some people didn't have sandals. They would hear about who memorizes the Holy Quran, the new revelation, the last revelation, and they would go find that person, and they would sit. And then, they would sit in circles, and it'd probably be 40, 50 people at a time. Maybe for every session for 2 hours or 3 hours, it would be 40 or 50 people at a time. And this one person is teaching exactly what he got from Muhammad to this 40 or 50 people every couple of hours. And it's spreading just like that. Now, this is important to understand. At that point, when they had that battle and they lost a lot of the Hufad. The Hufad are the people who memorized the Quran. The Islamic literature used the word Hufad for people who memorize the Quran. The word Hafiz just means a protector. So if you memorize God's revelation, Allah's revelation, then this means you have protected His revelation. So when those 70 plus or around that number of Hufad had died off, all of the eminent companions got together. They kind of had a disagreement. The Prophet Muhammad's best friend, Abu Bakr, he said, we're not doing that. We're going to continue to memorize the Quran and keep it an oral tradition, because the Prophet Muhammad never gave us an order to write the Quran down on sound of a book form. He never did that for us. So we're not going to do it. But some of the other eminent companions convinced him. They persuaded him and said, we're not in the time of the Prophet, and we need to make we need to do something about it. So long story short, they got all of the, I think it was 5 or 6 that were the best Quran reciters that everybody had knew that they sat with the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. So they took those individuals, and then there were other, I think maybe 10 or 12 or some odd number of other companions that were as good, but not as good as those 5 and 6 that everybody could do. Now, this was a public thing. This was a public event. They did this. It was announced first to the Islamic kingdom, and the people would come out to watch this process happen. And they would recite the Holy Quran from memory, chapter by chapter, word by word, letter by letter, sentence by sentence, And they had certified scribes, the best scribes of that day, who numbered in the tens. And they wrote down each and every last thing. And they didn't waver anything. They would have them recite it. And when they were done, whatever proportion that they recited, the scribes who wrote it down, they would check it. And they would look at it and they would write it and say, okay, this is what I have. They'll look at their scribe and they'll read back to the ones who memorized it, and they would say yay or they would say nay. Now, there were so many different people who also memorized the Quran, and they could have come out the crowd while they were watching this. Now, mind you, this is the holy book. This is the book that everybody took their souls and their minds, and they put it inside of this book. When the Holy Quran said, don't drink, don't have sex without being married, and don't just be walking around robbing and killing people. When the Holy Quran said that, people stopped doing those things and started doing the opposite. Now, this is the book that they have based their lives off of. So this, if somebody was going to tamper with it, it would have happened then. It would not have happened later on. That's a different conversation for a different day. So, to bring this whole full circle, they established one whole copy. They went through it, had the best reciters, they got it all together. The president at that time was Abu Bakr, the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu best friend. And after that, he kept it in his city, and he gave it to the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu second best friend, his left hand. I guess you could say Abu Bakr was the right hand, Umar was the left hand. So when Abu Bakr died 2 years after the Prophet Sallallahu, he gave it to Umar. It was just one copy. Umar safeguarded that one copy. And when he ruled for about 13, 14, and 15 years, when he had it after his presidency for 13, 14, and 15, how y'all doing? 13, 14, and 15 years, he kept it. He gave it to his daughter, who was the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu wife, Hafsa, and she safeguarded it. And it was a woman. Now, for all the people who try to say that Islam puts women down and so on and so forth, it was a woman who protected the only one copy of the Holy Quran. A woman. So keep a mental note of that. And she kept it for some odd years, and eventually Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu third best friend, Uthman, he received it once he became the president, and he kept it safe. After that, there was some discrepancy. The Holy Quran was revealed in 7 to 10 different dialects. We say 7 to 10 because the 3 on top of the 7, which would make 10, there are very, very, very minor differences. Now, differences in the Quran according to Joseph, or the Quran according to Muhammad II or the third, not that type of difference. There were dialectical differences, just like how in the South, people have a really, really heavy Southern accent. And if you go further northeast, they have that northeastern dialect. Like in Cincinnati, we have a more Southern dialect. We say ball, like we gonna say basketball or football. We say I'm going to go shoot some basketball. You go up northeast, those guys say we're going to shoot some basketball. Or maybe if you go to Columbus or if you go to Cleveland, they say ball, we say ball. That's the difference. This is the same thing with the Holy Quran. For example, one of the discrepancies, not discrepancy, I'm sorry, wrong word. One of the differences in the modes of recitation of the Holy Quran, and one of the 7 to 10 different modes of recitation of the Holy Quran is as such. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu. Sometimes it'll be like that, or they say Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, like that. So they would say like Moses' name. One dialect of the Arabs, one dialect that they would use for the name of Moses, which is in Arabic, is Musa. Some of them would say Musa. That was just their dialect. And because the Holy Quran was being revealed in Arabic, there were 7 to 10 different Arabic dialects in that sphere at that time. So God, Allah, accommodated all of them, and He revealed it, the Holy Quran, and all those 7 to 10 different dialects. Some ignorant scholars and ignorant people get a bite of that. they'll get a bite of that, just that piece of knowledge inside of Islamic history, and they'll run away with, oh, there were different Qurans and so on and so forth. But you got to put the magnifying glass on it and understand what that truly means. We'll do a live stream about that another day. Ooh, hate bees. Okay, so inshallah, in the time of Uthman, when he received just that one copy, now mind you, his 3 and 4 best friends, they spoke the same dialect as the Holy Prophet. It was called the Qurayshi dialect. It was, which was the ruling class of that time in Arabia. So, in Uthman's time, in the third, not even the third, almost the third generation. Assalamu alaikum, habibi. Mashallah, in Uthman's presidency or his reign, there was some discrepancy amongst the latter generations, the younger people, and they heard people reciting the Quran in a different way. They were so passionate about this book that they weren't having it, but they was ready to go to war with each other, and for people who did not know about the other recitations, because they had just learned the recitation that from their dialect. So let's fast forward to there. Uthman, he canceled out all the other dialects, which they still do exist today, but he standardized the Holy Prophet Muhammad's dialect, the Qurayshi dialect, to put all of the disputation to rest. So to show to everybody that it's the same book. So when he was when he was the president, there were, I think they made 6 copies on top of the one copy that he had that they had all come together and made. And he distributed it to them. I think he kept 3 of them, and then he distributed 3 of them to different parts of the Muslim land. Now we're gonna close up this this episode of What is the Quran like this. Now, let's say this is Uthman. He had the original Quran, the OG Quran. Now, he had the original Quran, and let's say, okay, they had Iraq. The people in Iraq have become Muslims, and the people in Syria, they have become Muslim. Let me just deal with this not to be confusing. But these are the most known, because there was another area and region, but these are the most known and popular areas today because of the sad events that we see every day in the news of what's going on over there. May Allah protect those brothers and sisters over there and keep their faith strong and save them from the turmoil and the trauma. Okay, so they had a copy of the Quran. Now, these people, the people of Iraq and the people of Syria, they are not from Arabia. They from Syria, which is really Europe. And they're from Iraq, which is really Persia or Asia. Hope I didn't offend anybody's nationality, or so to speak. So, there were 1 million Muslims inside of Syria, 2 million Muslims inside of Iraq. Now, people heard about the revelation of the Holy Quran. Now, this is not the exact directions, I'm just using the board. They heard about it in Africa. This is the first place that Islam spread to, and they heard about it in India. So these people would say, they would hear about it, and they would send deputies to go learn what this new revelation was, what they were hearing about. They send them. So they sent maybe 10 people on a deputation, and they went to Syria. And the people in India, which Muslims had camps set up there, they had 10 deputations, and they sent them to Iraq. Now, watch how this gets how this gets spun. 1 million people here, 2 million people here. Now, mind you, remember, these are all hypothetical numbers. I'm just giving an example, showing the paradigm of how the Holy Quran came to life and how it's a miracle. This preservation was a miracle. These 10 people who went to certain areas or one area in Syria, the same difference with Iraq, they learned. They go to 10 people who came from India, the 10 people that came from Africa, they learned. Now they went back to Africa, and they went back to India. Now they went, learned the Quran, memorized it by heart, memorized portions, whatever the case may be. They went back to India and Africa. Let me erase the board so I get some space. once they went back to Africa and India, whoever the Africans and the Indians were mixing with, culturally, doing business with, globally, whatever the case may be, these people were practicing Islam. They converted to practicing Islam. They learned the Holy Quran. They learned the life of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu. So the 10 came back to Africa. The 10 came back to India, and they taught people in their villages. Maybe they spread out. Boom, boom, boom. People here, people here, people here, people here. Boom, boom, boom. Here, here, here. And then these people went to different parts of Africa, different parts of India, and it spread. And spread, etc. And it spread all through Africa, and spread all through India. So now we have Arabia, the area of Arabia, Syria, which is really Europe. You got Africa, different pockets in Africa. You got India, different parts in India, and it just kept spreading and spreading and spreading and spreading. And here the miracle becomes full circle. You got Syria, you have Africa, you have India, you have Arabia. This is the known world at that time. Really wasn't people in America and at the tip tops of Central and Northern Europe. They had some tribes there. That's a different debate. People are still finding different historical bones and excavations or whatever. It's a different story for a different day. This is the known world. This is what was popular at that time. Now, generations later, we, in this global society, we can go back to the Qurans that were printed in Syria, the Qurans that were printed in Africa, the Qurans that were printed in India, the Qurans that were printed in Arabia. Now, here's the global society of today. The global society today, we can go back and look at these. And when we go back and look at these, all of them, all those Qurans are the same exact Qurans. Millions of Qurans have been printed. Millions of Qurans are on the internet. Millions of the Quran that touch millions of people in all these different countries and these different cultures and these different languages. If you took a person from Syria, took a person from Africa, from Iraq, from Arabia, and they speak their local dialect and their local language, they could not even say hi to each other. But if you told them to read chapter 2, verse 2, or so on and so forth, each one of the peoples from this part of the world, or from any part of the world, would say the same exact words. The same exact words. So somebody please tune in or inbox me or put a status for me of how this was made possible. How did the Quran come from Allah, God, to Angel Gabriel, to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu, and he taught his friends, their friends taught their friends taught their friends, and from that it just went all over the place, all over the world. And when you look at now the Syrians, the Iraqis, the Indians, and the Africans, they were not mixing, so to speak. They were not mixing, except for a Hajj pilgrimage in Mecca once a year. Then they would utilize mixing with the different cultures and you know, spread, share knowledge and spread knowledge, and they go back to their respective provinces and places and countries and societies and tribes and what have you. And they would bring back some of this knowledge. But decades later, generations later, years later, we go back and we can see that the products of Islam that were produced in all these different places were the same exact Qurans. Now, we got one or two situations here. Either this is the absolute and complete truth, or absolute and complete truth, or there was a mass worldwide intergenerational conspiracy, and there were some little evil Illuminati people or something who has ever lived an everlasting life, existing in each generation, and making sure that this conspiracy went on from the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam's time in the 7th century all the way up into 2017. How in the world, how in the world could we possibly have the Quran float through all these minds, float through all these hearts, float through all these hands, touch all these books, touch all these pens, all these scrolls, all these the bones that they used to write on, the papyrus, all these different the Quran has touched so many different places, and when you go back to these places and you go and look at the Holy Quran, you don't find one alteration. You don't find a missing letter. You don't find there has never been a news a broadcast or headline in the history of news that said, breaking news, we just dug up the original Quran from such and such date, and it was a different book, or it was the Dead Sea Quran, or whatever the case may be. We don't have this. Closing, I want to say that it was a journey for me to learn all of this. It took me almost the entirety of my prison bid of 9 years to learn that. I was learning bits and pieces, and it was still keeping me bound towards that learning. Like, oh man, this is crazy. Why didn't anybody tell me about this? How come didn't anybody go find out and tell me about it so I could have done different things in my life? And this is why I'm doing this live stream and doing this series on what is the Holy Quran. Because had I had the Holy Quran, may Allah forgive me for questioning the past, but had I had the Holy Quran, maybe I wouldn't have been out here on this avenue carrying guns, shooting at people, robbing people, selling dope, destroying the community. I would have had a divine guidance that I could have bound myself to and followed to my best ability as I'm doing now. The Holy Quran is the only thing that has kept me out of trouble, that has gave me a good life. It got me through the hard 9 years of prison that I had to do. It got me through all of that. Just sticking to that book. It went from me having absolutely nothing but a pack up inside of a cell to me having a house, a family, a decent job, making an all right living for myself and having some peace inside of my heart. I don't feel like I have to go out and make a quadrillion dollars and have a gazillion girlfriends just to feel like I'm a human being. My humanity is contained inside of the definition that God gave man inside of the Holy Quran, and I'm fine. I sleep okay. I'm able to wake up every single morning with the true purpose. If we wake up every single morning and say, I gotta go get as much money as I possibly can so that I can buy as many girls as I can possibly buy, or the females wake up every single day and say, hey, I have to make myself as beautiful as society says that I have to be, and so I can get a whole bunch of boyfriends and they can buy me a whole bunch of stuff. If this has become the meaning of a lot of young brothers and sisters' lives, we got to work towards changing that. I used to be the same person in that same walk of life, and I used to do those same types of things, maximize the living in those types of situations. So we got to do our best effort to bring some light to this so we can stop this type of behavior, because it's a false fulfillment. So I'm going to close up, inshallah. I appreciate everybody for tuning in, whoever tuned in. Thank thank the cameramen, the young du'at, the youngsters. They come and help the brother out. Inshallah, we're going to do more of these types of series, more of these types of talks, these types of conversations, so that we can get the truth out there. And worst case scenario, nobody becomes Muslim. That's their prerogative with God. At least we can agree with the concepts that I'm trying to put into the rotation in society. When the Holy Quran says that if you kill a person, it's as if you killed all of humanity. Or if you save a person, it's as if you have saved all of humanity. I don't know an honest individual who would disagree with that type of statement. And if you don't become a Muslim, at least you agree with that type of statement and you incorporate that principle inside of your life so that we can have a better quality of living. We don't have to, look at, this is one thing I want to show y'all. Why is it that it's a stop sign, whatever this sign is for the street? Now we're in the hood, why is this sign down? Now if we were in Westchester or Forest Park or anywhere else inside of the suburbs, that wouldn't be that way. And we can improve the quality of our life. We've had literally live shootouts and robberies and drug transactions all in this area, and this kind of stuff is still continuing on. As a matter of fact, this is another one of the drug houses right there. The lavender colored building. That was one of our drug houses. We can put an end to all of this stuff if we incorporate better values, and that's what I'm trying to put out here. For us to individually incorporate better values, and then bring these values full circle and save our community and save our and save humanity as a whole. I appreciate everybody for tuning in. I'm gonna get on with my Sunday. Let y'all get on with y'all Sunday. I'm gonna get ready for my football game tonight. May Allah be with these legs so I can run for 500 yards inside of one game on 10 carries, inshallah. But I'll see y'all later on. Tune in. If I made any mistakes or y'all have anything to add to anything that I said, inbox me. Send me a stat on Facebook or however we need to hook up. We need to get this movement rolling. A lot of the young brothers and sisters are losing their lives, and they have lost the concept of what true life is supposed to be. And I'm putting forth my effort on whatever it is that I can do. This is the first in the beginning of a series of documentaries. This is the first documentary. Mashallah, was a success, and we coming through.